Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to start the first video in a video series about the French defense. This is going to be how to play the French defense as black. So we're going to start with e4, then e6, and now d4 and d5. So specifically, we're going to look at the exchange French today. So I would not recommend the exchange French from the white side. I think it's a little unambitious. And definitely you should play the Tarrasch with knight d2, or the open with knight c3. I think both of these are a lot more ambitious for white, especially from the white side. You want to be playing for that win. So here we're going to start with the exchange French, which is take on d5, take, and the first line we're going to look at is c4. So c4, generally we're going to see moves like c6, but here we're going to follow up with knight c6. See, the idea here is we want to give white an isolated pawn. So let's say, for example, he plays knight c3. Now we can take on c4. And here, following bishop takes, we're going to play queen takes pawn. Now here, we don't want to play knight. We can play knight takes, but queen takes is going to be more straightforward because now that we're up a pawn, we don't mind going into the endgame. This would be a favorable endgame, and we'd already have threats with this knight fork and castling queenside, so bishop f5 and castling queenside, and getting a lot of play against his open king. So let's backtrack. So here, after knight c6, you might see moves more likely like knight f3 or take on d5. So either way, our main objective is to give white this isolated pawn and then just put pressure on d4. So here we're going to follow up with knight f6, and now he's going to play bishop e2. So we don't want to take on c4 immediately. We want to make him waste a move with his bishop. So if we take on c4 now, he's going to play bishop takes, and his bishop comes straight to c4. So what we want to do is make a waiting move, knight f6. Now he plays bishop e2 or bishop d3, and we take on c4. Now if he takes, you see how this bishop moved twice? We got this knight in for free. And now we're going to play probably bishop b4 check, castle kingside, and then just pressure this d4 pawn. Remember, the big thing in opening is don't try to memorize everything. Try to understand why we're making these moves and know these ideas. That will help you execute when it comes, because you're not all the time will you get exactly what you've looked at, or sometimes you'll forget. So the key is give him the isolated pawn and make that bishop move twice. Another variation, take on d5 queen takes. You might see knight c3. We're just going to go here, we can just take on d4, and if knight f3, we're just going to apply pressure, bring a piece out, and put pressure on d4. Now here, and now we can castle queenside, and here we have exactly what we want. We have a very active position, and we're going to start pawn storming like this. Okay, so now let's backtrack, and now let's look at a variation besides for c4. c4 we have all set. c4, basically all we do is play knight c6, and we try to give him that isolated pawn. Now we're going to look at knight f3. So here, some people's inclination is to play bishop g4 and pin this knight, but here now white will play bishop e2, and this pin is kind of useless. And now black has to stay on the lookout for these knight e5 ideas. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a waiting move. We're going to wait till this bishop moves, and if it goes bishop d3, then we follow with bishop g4. So our number one mating move is bishop d6, because we want to get this knight to e7, and we're gonna aim to castle queenside. So here we'll see a little bit as it progresses, but let's say bishop d6, bishop d3, now knight e7 castle, and bishop g4 is coming. To change the move order, you can go bishop g4 first. It really doesn't matter. So here we'll continue like this, rook e1, and now we're going to work towards castling queenside. So queen d7, knight d2. A lot of times you'll see bishop g5. Bishop g5 is very, very good for us because we get f6 in, here in, and now we're going to castle queenside, and we're going to launch all the pawns. As an example, continuation would be like this, here, take, and now h5, h4, and white's position is going to be opened up, and his attack is a little behind. Okay, so now let's backtrack. So now we know what to do if bishop d3. So we make this bishop d6 waiting move, and if bishop d3, we can pin now. Now let's go back and say bishop e2. So bishop e2, the difference here is this bishop is taking a passive route. So now what we're going to do is we're going to knight e7 and bishop f5. And now this bishop is going to be the more dominant of the two bishops. And then we're going to continue knight c6 and knight c6, and we can castle kingside or even castle queenside and launch the pawn. The big thing here is black is the one that's more active, and as black, it's always good to kind of be playing for the more active side, because generally, like, you're always worried about having disadvantage as black. And that's why I say don't play the exchange French as white. Now let's go back to here. So take, and we looked at knight f3. So knight f3, the keys are the waiting move. We don't want to pin the knight until the bishop on f1 moves out somewhere. So the number one waiting move is bishop d6, and then we just develop, and we actually have the option of castling kingside or queenside. Now let's look at our last variation, knight c3. So knight c3 is a little bit different. It's not putting any pressure on d5, and it's saying I don't want an isolated pawn. So here we got to treat this a little bit differently. We're going to go c6. So c6, now general, knight f3. Now we don't pin this knight here. We don't go bishop g4 because this bishop hasn't moved yet. So we're going to continue making waiting moves, bishop d6. Now you'll see bishop d3, and now we strike with bishop g4. So castle, and now we're going to just develop our pieces here. And let's say like bishop g5. Once again, we have this f6 idea here, queen c7, and now we're going to castle queenside, and we're going to have a great attack. So this is basically a very, very easy way to get more juicy, more advantageous positions against the exchange French. So thanks for watching this video. Remember to check out wolfchess.org for a bunch of puzzles, videos, lessons, and all that good stuff. And hope you guys were entertained.